So for our theater history project, I decided to study and go over the Middle Ages. Um, it's called, the Middle Ages or medieval times because it fell between the Roman era and between the Renaissance, also known as the Rebirth. The countries that it, was founded in usually is Italy, France, and Germany. And we know this because there's scattered references to describe actors, such as, forgive me with some of these pronunciations, Mimi, Histriones, and Io Culitores. Um, just like in any era, it's filled, with prominent people and, those who have an impact on the culture. For in the medieval times here, we have, forgive me again with this pronunciation, Hashroeta. She was a religious leader, a noble woman, and she was the first known female playwright, and she was also the first known post-Roman playwright. This is really she's really important because after the collapse of the Roman era there, many didn't think there was going to be successors to that continuation of theater with that from that aspect, and her work is really proof of the intellectual continuity from Rome brought into the Middle Ages in terms of her plays. Um, but the problem is, she doesn't get enough recognition. She's actually still overshadowed by someone. The man, his name is Ethelwald, and he was the Bishop of Winchester, England. Um, and he showed the Christian church staging a small play as a part of a church service. And he also created the Regulars Concordia, which is basically a guidebook, and describes in detail how one part of Easter service was to be performed. And before at the World, the church was trying different practices like with music and art and architecture as a part of their plays. And the biggest embellishment that they've gotten when At the World came around was the trope, and that brought in existing text. And then from around the 1200, that was earlier in the medieval times, and then from about the 1200s to the 1500s, a lot of shifts began to happen um, within that time frame. Population increased rapidly, increased trade, developments of towns, and then modern commercial structures that we know today, such as like banks and then partnerships, business partnerships. And this all had an effect on theater because of the population. Theater obviously more people began to come around and see things and see these performances, and it brought in outsiders because of the business partnerships and trades. People were forced to commute to certain areas. They want to get certain stuff done. Hence the growth of theater during that time frame. And also, a famous man named Martin Luther, he sparked, the separation of religion from everyday life, which is huge because up until that point, the religious aspect was everyday, 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 and we started to see it slow down. It wasn't, religion wasn't a part of everyday lifestyle. Um, Also, in this time frame, we do see religious drama start to form. Religious drama, like outside of theater in the church, there, outside, I should say. So they started to be performed like in outdoors rather than inside the churches. You started to see, plays began to be spoken rather than than sang or either chanted. And then also you start to see it in different languages too. Not just it wasn't just Latin anymore. It was French, English, and German. And also you saw regular churchgoers actually act, in these plays, and not just ordained people, because it used to be just ordained like priests and stuff, are the only ones qualified to act in these plays. And then you start to see a wider range of stories and themes um, they had more range, and that's something that wasn't quite there. Because of the religious aspect, it was always a general kind of thing. But you start to see, they start to branch off into different avenues, and then some things we still see today. During that time, we start to see that there are people known as masters of secrets, and basically that translates to just individuals who were very good at special effects at the time. So during this era now, we see things coming at such as flying. So anything with angels or anything, you can start seeing people like actually bring that to life, flying, and then you start to see traps. So you saw people appear, disappear, reappear again, and substitute on and off within the play itself. And then also a big thing at the time, fire. And this caused many accidents. It's a trial and error process, of course, but it's a special effect nonetheless. When you talk about like things, let's say someone's playing the role of the devil, and then, something as simple as smoke and flames, could be able to give that visual and provide more depth to the play itself. And also, costumes began to have more meaning. You started seeing, costumes and designs that really linked towards and the play itself, and you started to have messages, and it became really important. And also, what we see today as well, movable staging. Around that time, you also saw pageant styles were created because in the town performances, they call it pageant style because productions would come down like a certain, let's say like a certain road or strip, and ongoers were on each side watching this happen, and just picture like you're at a pageant or something along the lines of like you see the runways there and people are just on the side overlooking what is going on. So that was like also kind of formed there. And you also, towards the end of the medieval period, you start to see secular drama, meaning it was plays and productions with no religious affiliation, which is huge because you don't realize how much religion and church had such an influence on just all walks of life. And like I already said before, there were street pageants. You started to see Roman plays. The comedies and tragedies were studied and copied and translated in schools. And then also, I believe I can't pronounce this as Farsis or Farsis. What it kind of is ordinary people who poked fun at all walks of life. That's seen as a bad thing at first. You weren't seeing things like that up until this point. So just to wrap things up, guys, all in all, the medieval time period, does not get enough credit. It doesn't get the recognition it deserves. It's still forgotten, and it's a shame because we do have a lot of influence from that era, as of some of the things I've listed, and some of those things are still prominent today. So it is a shame, but I hope that I was able to teach you guys some things, and I hope you can take some stuff away from this. Maybe they'll be able to help with the final exam as well. So thanks for listening, and I'll catch you guys on the flip.